April 14th, 1945. Aschaffenburg, Germany. Captain John Gorn stands in a crater 50 meters from a stone fortress that shouldn't exist anymore. His company has fired 47,000 artillery shells at this building over 6 days. The walls are still standing. Inside, Major Emil Lamberth commands 400 German soldiers who've decided the war isn't over. Gorn has 89 men. The fortress has walls 3 meters thick. The math is simple. Gorn's entire company can't generate enough firepower to crack stone that survived since 1552. Lamberth knows this. Gorn knows this. But Gorn walks toward the fortress alone. No white flag, no weapon visible, just boots on rubble. In urban combat, attackers need a 3-to-1 advantage minimum. Gorn is outnumbered 4-to-1 in the wrong direction. His men have been fighting for 23 consecutive days. They're down to 40% ammunition. The 45th Infantry Division has lost 1,200 men taking this one city. Standard doctrine says bypass it, wait for reinforcements, or call in airstrikes that'll level everything. But Eisenhower wants Aschaffenburg cleared by April 17th. That's 72 hours. The fortress sits on the only bridge across the main river for 30 kilometers. Without it, the entire advance stops. But Gorn is about to violate every rule of siege warfare because in the next 6 hours, he'll convince a fanatic Nazi major to surrender without firing another shot. He'll walk into a fortress designed to kill intruders and walk out alive. And he'll end a battle that's killed more Americans than D-Day's Omaha Beach per square kilometer. His advantage? He's figured out something about Emil Lamberth that Lamberth hasn't figured out about himself. John Charles Gorn. Born February 3rd, 1921, in Binghamton, New York. His father ran a hardware store and taught John one principle: you can't fix what you don't understand. At 12, John spent 3 weeks taking apart a broken tractor engine, learning every component before reassembling it correctly. He didn't want to fix it fast. He wanted to understand why it broke. That difference would save 489 lives in Germany, but to understand how, you need to know what made him different. July 8th, 1943, Sicily. Gorn's first combat action wasn't supposed to be combat. The 45th Division landed at Skogliti, and Gorn was assigned to inventory captured enemy supplies. He found a warehouse full of German radio equipment and spent 4 hours examining it while his unit moved inland. His commanding officer found him elbow deep in a disassembled transmitter. "Lieutenant, what are you doing?" Gorn held up a vacuum tube. "Their radios use a frequency modulation we don't. If we know their ranges, we know their positions." He'd taught himself basic German radio operation by studying the equipment. By evening, he'd created a map showing likely German communication posts based on equipment capabilities. 2 of his predictions led to successful raids the next day. His CO recommended him for intelligence work. Gorn declined. "I need to see how they think under pressure." September 14th, 1943, Salerno, Italy. The 45th was pinned on a beachhead, taking artillery fire from German positions in the hills. But Gorn noticed something. The German shells were landing in a pattern. 3 rounds northeast, 2 southeast. Pause. Repeat. He sketched the impact points and realized they were walking fire across the beach in a search pattern. The Germans couldn't see them through smoke, but were using math to predict American positions. Gorn told his commander, "They're using a grid system. If we move to these coordinates, we'll be in their blind spots." His captain thought he was insane. Exposed positions during artillery bombardment violated every instinct. But Gorn's pattern held. They moved. The shelling continued exactly where they'd been. 0 casualties in his platoon, while adjacent units lost 18 men. He got promoted to captain 3 weeks later. November 27th, 1944, Épinal, France. Gorn's company encountered a German rearguard holding a stone mill. 20 defenders, strong position, plenty of ammunition. Gorn's orders were to eliminate them. He could have called artillery. Instead, he sent a private forward under white flag with a message. "We know you're low on medical supplies. We know you have wounded. Surrender and we'll treat them." The German lieutenant sent back, "How do you know we have wounded?" Gorn's response, "You've been in position 4 days. You've fired 3,000 rounds. Your rate of fire dropped 40% yesterday. Either you're running out of ammunition or healthy soldiers. You're German. You wouldn't run out of ammunition." 3 hours later, the Germans walked out. They had 7 wounded men. One German officer asked how he'd calculated the rate of fire. Gorn showed him his notebook. He'd been counting shots for 96 hours. The officer laughed. "You think like us. This is dangerous for you." Gorn said, "It's more dangerous for you." April 8th, 1945. Outskirts of Aschaffenburg. The 45th Infantry Division hit Aschaffenburg expecting light resistance. Intelligence said the city would fall in 2 days. They were wrong. Major Emil Lamberth commanded the city's defense. 350 Wehrmacht soldiers, 50 Hitler Youth, unlimited fanaticism. By April 12th, the 45th had lost 400 men. Gorn's company was down from 187 men to 89. They were stuck in front of Schloss Johannesburg, the castle fortress where Lamberth commanded from walls built to withstand cannon fire 5 centuries ago. Gorn spent 2 days watching the fortress. He noticed something. Every morning at 0600 hours, one window on the 3rd floor opened for exactly 8 minutes. A soldier dumped wastewater. Same window, same time, same duration. German precision. Gorn realized Lamberth was still following peacetime garrison routines inside a war zone. Lamberth wasn't just defending Aschaffenburg. He was defending the idea that Germany still existed as an organized state. And that meant Lamberth could be reasoned with, but only in German terms. Gorn stands in the crater with Lieutenant Kerrigan. "Captain, regiment wants us to pull back and hit them with white phosphorus." Gorn shakes his head. "Lamberth has civilians in there. 40, maybe 50. Kerrigan stares. "How do you know?" Gorn shows his notebook. "They're bringing in 12 loaves of bread every morning. His soldiers get field rations. Bread means civilians. Women and children, probably." Kerrigan processes this. "So we're stuck." Gorn closes the notebook. "No, we talked to him." Major Lamberth has rejected 2 surrender demands already. He's fired on flag-bearing envoys 3 times. But Gorn has studied Lamberth's defensive patterns. Every position follows Wehrmacht regulations exactly. Fields of fire, supply lines, fallback positions. Lamberth isn't improvising. He's implementing doctrine. Which means Lamberth still believes the German army exists as a professional military institution. Gorn lays out his plan. "I'm walking in there alone. No weapon. I'm going to request a formal parley under military protocol." Kerrigan looks shocked. "They'll shoot you." Gorn nods. "Maybe, but Lamberth follows rules. If I approach under formal military parley, Wehrmacht regulations require him to receive me as an enemy officer, not a target." He briefs his company. If he's not back in 2 hours, Kerrigan takes command. Gorn writes 2 letters, one to his parents, one to Dorothy in Binghamton. Then he takes off his helmet. He wants Lamberth to see his face. At 10:15 hours, Captain John Gorn, age 24, walks across 50 meters of rubble toward a fortress held by men who've killed 400 Americans rather than retreat. 20 meters from the fortress, Gorn hears a rifle bolt. A voice shouts in German, "Halt or we fire." Gorn stops, raises his hands, and responds in German, I request formal parley under military protocol with Major Lamberth. I am an officer of equal rank acting under lawful authority. Silence. 30 seconds. 40. Then, stay where you are. Gorn stands perfectly still for 11 minutes. His arms ache. He doesn't lower them. The fortress door opens. 4 German soldiers emerge, weapons raised. Wehrmacht, not SS. They search Gorn, finding his notebook, a pen, and the 2 letters. One soldier reads the letters. You wrote goodbye letters before coming here? Gorn nods. Major Lamberth will see you. But if you try anything, your men outside will find pieces of you on the wall. They blindfold Gorn and lead him inside. The fortress interior smells like stone dust, cordite, and old fear. Gorn counts steps, 92 from entrance to destination. He hears voices, women, children crying somewhere distant. His count was right. Civilians. They climb stairs. 13 steps. Turn left. 30 paces. Stop. The blindfold comes off. Gorn stands in what was probably a castle dining hall. Maps cover one wall. Radio equipment lines another. Behind a desk made from an old door sits Major Emil Lamberth. Lamberth is 43, thin, wearing a Wehrmacht uniform that's been mended multiple times, exhausted but composed. He studies Gorn for a full minute. You're very young to be a captain. Gorn meets his eyes. You're very stubborn to be defending a fortress after Berlin has fallen. Lamberth's expression doesn't change. Berlin hasn't fallen. Germany hasn't fallen. We hold this position. Gorn takes a risk. Major, I'm not here to debate. I'm here because you have 47 civilians in this fortress, including 13 children under age 10. I know this because you requisition 12 loaves of bread daily. Wehrmacht field rations feed your soldiers. Bread feeds families. Lamberth leans back. You've been watching carefully. Gorn nods. For 6 days. I've also noticed you maintain garrison routines. Morning waste disposal at 0600. Guard changes every 4 hours. Supply runs at dawn and dusk. You're following regulations designed for peacetime occupation. Lamberth's eyes narrow. Your point? Gorn opens his notebook. My point is that you're a professional officer, not a fanatic. You're protecting those civilians because it's your duty. But you're trapped. You can't surrender without losing honor, and you can't win. So we're both stuck. Lamberth could have him shot. Instead, he laughs, a tired, bitter sound. So the Americans send me a captain who counts bread loaves and reads Wehrmacht manuals. What exactly do you propose? Gorn uses Lamberth's name deliberately. I propose we find a way for you to evacuate those civilians without surrendering. You've done your duty. You've held this position for 6 days against overwhelming force. No one can question your honor, but those children don't need to die for honor. Lamberth stands. He walks to the window overlooking rubble where a city used to be. You don't understand? I have orders from Kesselring himself. Hold Aschaffenburg. No retreat. No surrender. Gorn joins him at the window. Dangerous. 2 enemy officers, side by side. Major, may I ask you something professional, too professional? When did you last receive communication from Kesselring's headquarters? Lamberth doesn't answer. That tells Gorn everything. You haven't heard from them in 4 days, have you? The command structure has collapsed. You're following orders from an army that no longer exists. Lamberth's hand tightens on the windowsill. I am Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht doesn't abandon duty. Gorn speaks carefully. I know. I've fought you for 2 years. Sicily, Italy, France, Germany. You're the best soldiers I've ever faced. But Major, the Wehrmacht serves Germany. Not the other way around. If Germany is dead, what are you serving? It's the question Lamberth has been avoiding. Gorn can see it hit. Lambert turns from the window. Even if I wanted to evacuate civilians, I can't. My men are watching. Some are fanatics. If I show weakness, they'll kill me and keep fighting. Here's where Gorn plays his final card. Then don't evacuate them. Let me do it. Give me 2 hours ceasefire. I'll send medical personnel to evacuate wounded and civilians. You maintain your position. No surrender, no loss of honor. Just a humanitarian gesture that shows Wehrmacht professionalism. Lambert stares. Why would you do this? Gorn looks him straight in the eye. Because I've watched you for 6 days. You could have used those civilians as human shields. You didn't. You could have executed American prisoners. You didn't. You're trying to fight an honorable war in a dishonorable situation. I respect that. Silence. Lambert walks back to his desk. He sits. 3 full minutes pass. Finally. 2 hours, 1,300 to 1,500 hours. Your medics can evacuate civilians and wounded. But Captain, if any of your men enter with weapons, the ceasefire ends. And I will personally shoot you first. Gorn extends his hand. Lambert stares at it. Shaking hands with an enemy means something in German military culture. Slowly, Lambert reaches out and shakes. You're either very brave or very stupid, Captain Gorn. Gorn allows a slight smile. I'm from New York. We're usually both. At 1,300 hours, 6 American medics approach Schloss Johannesburg under white flags. German soldiers watch from windows, tense as wire. For 2 hours, they evacuate 47 civilians and 14 wounded Germans. Gorn stands in the fortress courtyard the entire time, visible to both sides. If shooting starts, he dies first. That's the guarantee keeping both sides honest. At 14:30 hours, the last child, a girl named Sophie, age 7, walks out holding a medic's hand. Gorn watches her go. He looks up at Lambert on a second-floor balcony. They nod to each other. At 1,500 hours exactly, the medics withdraw. As Gorn crosses the threshold, Lambert calls down. Captain Gorn, what happens now? Gorn looks up at the exhausted German officer. Now you have a choice, Major. The civilians are safe. Your wounded are being treated. You've fulfilled every duty an officer can fulfill. What happens next is up to you. Lambert says nothing. Gorn walks back to American lines. Kerrigan meets him. Command is going insane. They think you've lost your mind. Gorn shakes his head. Give Lambert until dawn. He's thinking. April 15th, 06:20 hours. The third-floor window opens. A white sheet hangs from it. At 06:45, Major Emil Lambert walks out, alone. He carries his sidearm, barrel pointed down. He walks directly to Gorn's position. American soldiers raise weapons. Gorn orders them to lower them. Lambert stops 3 meters away. I am surrendering this fortress, and my command to you personally, Captain. Not to America, to you, because you treated us like soldiers, not animals. He extends his sidearm. Gorn takes it. Then he salutes Lambert. The major returns it. 400 German soldiers file out over 3 hours. No shots fired, no casualties. The battle for Aschaffenburg ends not with an explosion, but with a handshake between 2 men who understood something about duty that transcended flags. Within hours, the story spreads through the 45th Division. Stars and Stripes runs it. American officer ends siege through negotiation. Division awards Gorn the Silver Star. He puts it in his footlocker and doesn't look at it for 30 years. Major Lambert is processed as a POW. Before transport, he asks to speak with Gorn. They meet in a bombed-out building. Lambert hands Gorn a piece of paper. My home address. After the war. Come visit. I'll show you that Germany is more than what you fought. Gorn takes it. Only if you promise to explain how you held that fortress for 6 days. Lambert almost smiles. Stubbornness and very thick walls. They shake hands. Gorn never sees Lambert again. The major dies in 1953. But Gorn keeps the address his entire life. May 2nd, 1945, Munich. Gorn's company secures a government building. Inside, 47 SS officers who've decided to fight to death. An SS officer appears at a window. "We will never surrender to American dogs." Gorn responds in German, "I'm not asking you to surrender to Americans. I'm asking you to surrender to the Wehrmacht." The officer laughs. "Wehrmacht has surrendered." "They are cowards." Gorn nods. "Exactly. Which means Wehrmacht officers are being treated as prisoners of war under Geneva Convention. You're SS. You'll be tried as war criminals unless you surrender as Wehrmacht. Remove your SS insignia, your army officers, Wehrmacht prisoners, Geneva protections. It's a legal fiction. It's also a lifeline. 20 minutes later, 47 men walk out wearing regular Wehrmacht uniforms. They've stripped their SS insignia. Gorn has them processed as Army POW. His colonel finds out and nearly court-martials him. "You let SS war criminals pose as regular Army." Gorn doesn't argue. "I saved 47 American lives by ending a firefight before it started." "Sir?" The colonel can't refute that. Gorn sleeps fine. He saved his men. That's the only math that matters. The war ends 8 days later. Gorn returns to New York in December 1945. He doesn't capitalize on his Silver Star. He doesn't write a memoir. He goes back to Binghamton and works in his father's hardware store. When customers recognize him, he changes the subject. He marries Dorothy in 1947. They have 3 children. He never talks about the war at home. In 1963, a German businessman visits Binghamton. He's Lamberth's son. "My father wanted me to meet you before he died. He said you showed him that honor still existed in war." Gorn doesn't know what to say. "Your father was a good officer. I just helped him remember that." Lamberth's son leaves a photograph showing the major with his family after the war. On the back, "To Captain Gorn, who understood that soldiers fight for countries, but men fight for principles. John Charles Gorn dies March 12, 1994. In Binghamton, heart attack, age 73. He's buried in Riverhurst Cemetery, Section C, Plot 47. His headstone reads, John C. Gorn, Captain, U.S. Army, 1921-1994. Beloved husband and father. No mention of the Silver Star. No mention of Aschaffenburg. The hardware store closes in 1996. No one names anything after Gorn. The city of Aschaffenburg has a museum about the battle. There's one photograph of American officers with German prisoners. Gorn is in the back, blurry, unidentified. Most historians don't know his name. Some stories don't fit on headstones. There are 2 ways to tell this story. First way, an American captain defeated an enemy fortress through brilliant psychology and nerves of steel. He outsmarted a Nazi major and saved hundreds of lives. That's true. Second way, a hardware store owner's son spent 24 years learning you can't fix what you don't understand, and 6 days watching an enemy officer's routines until he understood what the major couldn't surrender versus what he wanted to preserve. Then he offered a choice that honored both. That's also true. Both are remarkable. But here's what matters. The story isn't about negotiation. It's about recognition. Gorn didn't defeat Lamberth. He saw him. He saw an officer trapped between duty to orders and duty to humanity and offered a solution that preserved both. Most military victories come from force. This one came from understanding the enemy so completely you can show them a choice they couldn't see themselves. That's what Gorn's father taught him at 12. You can't fix what you don't understand. The broken thing in Aschaffenburg wasn't the fortress. It was the impossible situation both officers faced. Gorn fixed that by understanding it first. There's a decision pattern here that applies beyond battlefields. When faced with an enemy who won't be defeated by force, Most people apply more force. Gorn applied understanding. He studied Lamberth until he could predict his thinking, then spoke in terms Lamberth could accept. The question isn't whether this works in every situation. It doesn't. SS officers in Munich weren't reachable through honor, only through self-preservation. The question is whether you're willing to invest time to understand which situation you're in before acting. Most people aren't. They choose force because it's faster. Gorn chose understanding because it's effective. The story is simple in the end. Some problems can't be shot, only understood. Some enemies aren't defeated by killing them, but by recognizing what they're actually defending. And some victories matter not because they're documented, but because they prove that even in war, especially in war, understanding defeats force more often than we admit. Gorn knew this at 24. Most people never learn it. He went home, ran a hardware store, and died unknown. But 47 civilians lived. 400 soldiers surrendered instead of dying. And for 6 hours in 1945, 2 enemies proved that war has room for understanding if anyone bothers to create it. The last words belong to Gorn himself, said in 1989 to a grandson asking about his war service. You want to know the secret to surviving combat? Don't just study how to kill the enemy, study why they're fighting. Once you understand that, you can show them how to stop. Some things you never stop being. John Gorn was a man who fixed broken engines by understanding them first. A Schaffenberg was just a very complicated engine, and he fixed it the only way he knew how,